Imagine a world without choices. Imagine you can't make your own decision. That wouldn't be a world for me. That wouldn't be a world for you. UIC.
Tell them we're gonna be stronger. Together we can make it right. Our purpose is a better Jamaica for you and I. Gonna be stronger together. Time we all just unify. Our purpose is a better Jamaica for you and I. It is a natural right for every human being to be free. Free, so free. So the government is there to protect you and me. UIC objective is to liberate the citizens from colonial bondage, them regulation, them taxation. Rob Jamaica, we independent. Be stronger together we can make it right. Our purpose is a better Jamaica for you and I. We're gonna be stronger together. Come, we all just unify. Our purpose is a better Jamaica for you and I. Non-partisan, constitutional Republic of Jamaica. You see the sovereignty of every citizen should be protected. Life, liberty and property of everyone should be equal with safety. Free and orderly social market, that a way all can live and earn it. Gonna be stronger together we can make it right. Our purpose is a better Jamaica for you and I. We're gonna be stronger together. Come, we all just unify. Our purpose is a better Jamaica for you and I. Yeah. Change the people, them ready for no for suck blood like a them named Dracula. Looking at the ghetto sufferation regular. Pressure bus pipe revolution we ready for. Can't get no change if the system not change, if the government remain all the same. If you take with them vice and I give them the choice, all you want to hear them complain. Gonna be stronger together we can make it right. Our purpose is a better Jamaica for you and I. We're gonna be stronger together. Come, we all just unify. Our purpose is a better Jamaica for you and I.
All right, good evening, everyone. Good evening. We have a special UIC Liberty TV show for you tonight. I'm so glad for you all to come on. Seeing a lot of people on now. JMH, big up yourself. Good to have you on. Sweet lady, good evening. Bruce Davis, good to see you on. Yes, Mr. Joseph Richardson, slowly but surely UIC is going to shock Jamaica and the world, definitely. D, we are ready for the big change, definitely. Javi, big up yourself. Avi, good evening, fellow Uniters. Nezuk Komodo, blessed night to all my family. Sylvester Lawrence, UIC Mise. Bruce Davis, the blue wave is about to hit Jamaica. N. Smith says, who is the Montego Bay's representative? I'll get back to you on that one, N. Smith. Hope Richards, New York, hoping for a better Jamaica. So tonight is going to be a really interesting night, really great night. So Mr. Patterson is supposed to be on CVM this evening. The interview should be at 7:30, should be starting at 7:30. And so we're going to stream that in when it starts, when the interview starts. And also after that, we'll be having two, Mr. Patterson has invited two very influential people to come on tonight's show. One is someone who was connected with the FinSAC. If anyone knows about what happened with FinSAC, she was is a fashion designer, and with the whole FinSAC situation, that really affected her business. I'll just give a summary, right? And also the other person is Mrs. Valerie Dixon. So the person I just mentioned is Yola Gray Baker, Mrs. Baker. And then the other person coming on is Mrs. Valerie Dixon. And she wrote a book called Too Black to Be Successful. I think, no, Too Black to Succeed. Right. It's actually the title for today's show. Too Black to Succeed, the FinSAC experience. So, looking forward to hearing from those two lovely ladies, and as well Mr. Patterson when he comes back from CVM. I'm just checking to see now if CVM has actually started streaming. It looks that way. And then I'll bring you guys, or bring the interview in when the interview has started. So, how is everyone doing? Lady Williams says class is in session. Definitely, lady. Good evening, Jamaica and UIC. Good evening, Joan.
Good evening, I'm Michelle
Randall
Thomas.
Hemmings,
Welcome to our
school
90
starts
minute
UIC for life.
Wednesday, October 12th.
Garnett says
Thanks
good
for
night,
joining
Uniteds.
us.
Good night, everyone. Good night, Kirk. You're supposed to reach out to me, or is me supposed to reach out to you? I don't remember. But good night, Kirk.
Building a legacy. South St. Catherine MP and former PNP Chairman Fitz Jackson.
All right, so they've started, but they haven't started the interview portion yet.
Their Company of Jamaica and demanded action. And Information Minister shuts down claim the government is using the music ban to fight crime.
I don't get your Alan Scott.
Those are just some of what the team has put together for major stories, which happens
Oh, 2 million
exactly
can't eat. Okay.
Sorry.
Typos,
Thanks,
I know.
good evening, Michelle.
Desmond Murray says, good night, UIC Jamaica family.
In St. Catherine is now
one
closed.
love.
The National Works
yourself,
Agency
Mr.
reports
Murray.
that heavy rainfall in the watershed area has
So
caused
we're
the
just
water
waiting
levels
on the
rise
interview to
swiftly,
start
threatening to
with
overflow the
Mr.
flat
Patterson.
bridge. Motorists are now being encouraged to use
hopefully
alternate routes.
It will start soon.
And to more developing
yes,
news now,
Scott.
Prime
Yes, Alan
Minister
Scott. I got it.
Holness
2
says
million
a
can't eat.
comprehensive investigation will be undertaken.
Lady
to
Williams
crack
says
down on
class is in
illegal
session.
sale
Kirk,
of
you're supposed to
lands in
reach out to
areas
me.
across the
All right,
island.
so I don't have your
This has been
contact, so
organized crime and anti-corruption
send me your
agency
contact,
who
Kirk,
part of the Jamaican
and I'll
Constabulary
reach out to you.
Force have been tasked to investigate these scams and bring to book
Leslie
all those
Brown
persons
says, ready.
involved,
You ready,
some of whom
Leslie?
are
All
known
right.
to be
Cardell,
politically
blessings. Bless up,
connected.
Cardell.
The Prime Minister
Bruce
said,
Davis, this is the
regardless of their
beginning of
political
our journey
connection
of
on both
1,000
sides, we've
miles.
asked Mocha
I
JCF
agree.
to do a comprehensive
Good
investigation
night,
on the
Roland
matter.
Forbes,
He
Joseph
emphasized that
Richardson,
no
UIC to the
organization,
world,
no scammer,
Hope
no
Richards,
no
New York,
politician
hoping
can
for a
tell
better
anyone
Jamaica.
to go and occupy land that
So
they do
where are
not
you
legally
guys
own,
watching
unless
from?
private
Just
land
drop in the
or
chat.
government land.
And
the
you
government
guys
will
heard our
also
new
look
song,
to amend the
right?
legislation
Stronger
to
Together. Let me
equalize
know
the
what you
time
think
for
about it in the
adverse
chat. If you
possession
like it, put
of
a 10. If you don't really like
lands
it,
which
put a
are
1.
not
You know.
crown lands to 60 years. Currently,
So
not all state-owned
Nezouk
land
says
is crown
that's
land.
what the
So
slave
under
master
the Limitation
wants
of
us to
Actions
believe, but
Act,
that's not always the
crown
way.
land is protected by 60 years before you can take adverse possession of the land. State-owned lands are protected by a 12-year minimum. So to our private lands, the amendment aims to protect lands and the country's development
Zenzi
potential.
Scarab, happy UIC is given public TV time. I'm happy as well. Desmond Mara says 10. Well, I'm glad that you enjoyed the song.
And
London says love the song. Oh, Joan is in London and she loves the song. Okay, great. Song 100%. Bruce Davis, love the song. We need to do a video. Definitely, we need to do a video. So the artist for the song is a young man called Young Garvey. And so he has some really good songs and really good upcoming artists. Just know for him. Joseph Richardson watching out of Colorado. Welcome, Joseph Richardson. Devereaux, what is going on? You tell me what's going on, Devereaux. There's a lot happening in Jamaica. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Jamaica is not a real place. There's so much happening in Jamaica nowadays. Well, recently, sorry. Dornet Myers says, watching from Georgia. The Truth. Good night, United. Joseph Richardson, song is 10. Nezup says, I love the song, 100. Definitely. UIC TV could bring on Mr. Salmon Scott for a history lesson on how historical records of Black contributions to the building of Jamaican churches have been whitewashed to deny Blacks their due. Right? If you can reach out to Mr. Salmon Scott for us and Smith, we'd be happy to have him on. Lady Williams, watching and listening from Atlanta. Okay, welcome.
that
So,
there's a difference between
still checking back to see if Mr. Patterson is on CVM.
60 years.
Yes, once it's Crown land, it's
they've
a
started
longer
their
time to even
7:30 show,
again, that's to protect
but
the land.
land belongs
he's
to,
not on
to
yet.
the Crown in essence. So, what an interesting development there.
UIC will make it a real place. Tuning in from Florida. Welcome, Miller Rebel
Ongoing political
from
and
Florida.
national security
Wade Noble,
controversy surrounding
blessed
the
evening
demolition of
family.
structures
Classes in
located on
session.
lands in
Knowledge is
Clifton,
always
St.
power.
Catherine
Definitely,
continues
knowledge
to have
is key.
repercussions.
And it's not just
As a
knowledge
leader
is
of the
power, but the
opposition party
application
indicated
of the
that
knowledge
PNP
is
intends
where
to
the
offer
power
assistance
comes,
to
right?
those
Because
who have
you could know a lot of stuff
fraudulently
and you just don't
sold
do
the
anything.
lands. Subsequent
But
statements in Parliament
applying
by
what you
Minister
know,
and Home
applying the
Minister
knowledge is where the
seemed
power
to
is.
suggest
But
that a
I agree
deeper
with you, Wade.
societal discussion on the issue of
We
land
need to apply
access
that which we
is
know
impatient of
to
debate.
change
This
Jamaica,
evening
make
we
Jamaica a
seek
better
the
place.
thoughts on the issue
Deborah
of
Williams, what am
Joseph
I listening
Patterson,
to
who
though?
is
What is
president
the
of the
agenda today?
United
So today,
Independent
you
Congress.
may have missed it.
Mr.
So
Patterson,
today we're
good
going to be
evening.
watching Mr. Patterson's interview. Oh, it has started.
We're okay. You would
Okay,
have
so
heard the
Mr.
Prime
Patterson
Minister's
is on
statements
CVM
in
now.
Parliament.
Let's see if I
his
can bring it
suggestion
on.
that we need a broader conversation on the matter of land ownership. What is your view on the matter?
Well,
it's kind of low though. Are you guys hearing?
You think that over the 78 years that the jail came the elected for people, they would have by now found an efficient and effective structure of the program to return the land to the people from which it was stolen by the local office. Instead, what we see is the jail and BNB having continued to master the state colonial system and enrich a few at the expense of the majority. They have overseen the integration of a near failed state where families do not have a decent place to live, to call home. They have failed to acknowledge that the land does not belong to them, nor to the crown, that they continue to serve. It belongs to the people of Jamaica and should be given to the people of Jamaica, free and clear, at no cost, and without the unjust perpetual property tax either. So when the UIC is elected, we will ensure that every single citizen of Jamaica is granted their birthright and inheritance by making them a property owner by law. This is their entitlement. This is their right. A right that was fought for by Nani, Sam Shaw, Bogle, Gordon, and Garvey. And it's time for us to actually recognize this and make it a reality in Jamaica and stop playing games with laws and rules and names and titles. This is not government land, it's not crown land, it's the people's land.
But how do you put that into action by saying this is not crown land, this is not government land, this is, what does that mean? Because people can't then go and just take a piece of land. We've moved past that. What does that translate into beyond this political statement? What does that translate into in your mind, in policy, in action, in building institutions to support that?
It translates into, first of all, doing what I said before, acknowledging the truth, which they have not acknowledged. And then you're going to now structure a program. Now, they've had 7
But that's not true. The Prime Minister and the opposition leader have both consistently spoken to the fact that this is a historical wrong that needs to be addressed. I think, like you, they acknowledge it. The question is, how do you actually make legislation, policy, and institutional frameworks to support that opinion?
So the UIC has done that. Now, what you just said a while ago, they are claiming that they acknowledge it, but they haven't. The Prime Minister just told us that what he wants to do is to now extend adverse possession from 12 years to 60 years. What he's trying to do is to make sure that he can lock out the Jamaican people from their lands longer. What we want to do and what we will do is to ensure that we tell the Jamaican people, you are entitled to this land. And now we're going to put in place a structured framework to transfer that land from government possession to your possession. They have had 78 years to do that.
But I'm still asking, because you can't just transfer land. Is it that you are saying, are you critiquing then the methodology through Housing Trust and through the Housing Association of Jamaica? How does that work? Because and I'm pushing you on it, because so very often people who make these public statements just make that statement. What do you mean by
the
that?
First thing we need to do, which I've said before, we first need to make a statement very clear that the land belongs to you. Secondarily, now we're going to have a structured program. I'm not going to go here and tell the Prime Minister what the structured program should be. His party has had 78 years to do that. We have developed our own program. So when you elect the UIC, we're going to ensure that there's a structured program whereby you as a citizen will get the land, will get a property, not necessarily a piece of land. If you look at the way Singapore did it, they moved from a similar position as us, and they're now to over 90% of their people being property owners. They did that in 25 years. We're still going on 70. The UIC is going to ensure that every citizen becomes a property owner by law. So we're going to change the law to say you're entitled to it. They're going to change the law to say that we're going to try to bar you for 60 years from getting it, unless you have money to buy it and can compete with those other people who are buying up thousands of acres of our land or getting access to use it.
I suppose what we're trying to get at is, well, you said you're not giving up, but I'm not sure if that is quite fair to us, Mr. Patterson, for you not to tell us the modality, for us to interrogate further how it is that we will come into possession. Is it I can go anywhere and say, this is mine, and then there's a process to do what? An application? How will it work?
So what you have right now, so you have some people right now who are supposedly squatting on land. So those persons who are already on land, they have built their homes and it's already, we're going to have a cutoff phase. We say, okay, starting at this point, no such new building can be done. Then we have a program that those who are currently landless will be given properties, okay? And they're going to be able to build on those lands, or they're given a home that they're going to be able to pay for over time in a structured program. If you want to see an example of how some of that was done, not exactly the way we're going to do it, but similar. You look at the Singaporean model, how they moved so many of their citizens from being landless persons, propertyless persons, to now having a over 90% property ownership rate. It can be done. They have done it. Sweden have done it. We have just failed as a country over 78 years of those two parties to do it. And so now we can't trust them with any more programs to come with. Look at the NHD.
So you would do it within the context of how Singapore did it. Because remember, Singapore, we know Singapore's political system. And there's a particular context within which Singapore operates. So,
what is that context?
So tell me how the political system would have to change to accommodate that.
This has nothing to do with political system. This simply has the point of recognizing that the land belongs to the people, and now you're going to transfer that to them. You're going to look at, Jamaica has, roughly 3 million people. We're 15 times the size of Singapore. They have 5,500,000 people. In that context, they've been able to make 90% of their people homeowners. If we can't do that with 15 times the size of Singapore and about almost half the number of people, then something is wrong. So the UIC has a process that we're going to use to make every Jamaican a property owner.
Thank you so very much for joining us, Mr. Patterson.
Now, the Minister of Agriculture and Fisheries, Pernell Charles Jr., during an address to the 35th staging of the World
All right, guys. So there was very short interview. Waiting for Mr. Patterson to come on now and speak to you guys. Let me, Dorrit Myers, right here with you, lady. They're trying to get Mr. Patterson ideas to run with it. Yeah, well, they always try to do that. Wayne Noble, it is our land, definitely. Sweet lady, Mr. Patterson is taking the best from each country. What is so hard for them to understand? Yeah, I don't. I'm with you, sweet lady. I don't understand why it's so hard to comprehend. Singapore is relatively flat, though. Yes, but I mean, the fact is that it's still 1/15 the size. And so, here's the thing: if you want something like, oh, Mr. Patterson is here. Welcome, Mr. Patterson.
Yes.
Okay, so if you want something profitable, if you have a business, right? Let's say you have a business, and you have a shoe business, and you want that shoe business to be successful. Are you not going to look at the successful shoe businesses that are around and say, what are they doing, or what are they not doing, and try and apply that to what you're doing? You know, I don't know why it's so hard for people to, like, every time we mention Singapore, everybody's like, well, Singapore is this and Singapore is that. And I'm like, yeah, but Singapore did something that I don't know. I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, Mr. Patterson. I don't think any other country has done that.
Yeah, no other country, no other former colony of England, small country. You know, even India is still trying to recover from the colonial impact of England on them. And Singapore chose to do what many of them did not do, to create a country where it is safe, it is clean, it is orderly, the people are prosperous, and they have over 90% home ownership rate. And if you look at what our politicians have done with 78 years, the kind of Jamaica they've created over 78 years, it is totally unbelievable what they've done. So so I'm not sure what the argument is about Singapore, because Singapore should make us ashamed. We should be ashamed. We shouldn't be saying you can't compare yourself with Singapore. We should be ashamed. We should say, how is it that a country that is 1/15 our size, with almost twice our population, with less resources than us, they don't even have their own water. Singapore has to import water because they don't have water. They don't have the land space. They don't have the kind of water reserves that we have. So they have to import water. Singapore has none of our natural resources. Everything you see them have, they have to work hard to create it. They have one of the best tourism product in the world. How is that possible? How can that country way out there create the best tourism product in the world, one of the best tourism product in the world? Because they had the leadership and they had the governance model that suits them. The UIC has a fairly different governance model. We have a much better system of governance than what Singapore has, the one we're designing or have designed. And we have, I hope, the leadership that they have. You know, they had Lee Kuan Yew, which was to me a magnificent human being with great foresight and vision. He was smart enough not to be inward in his thinking. He went and looked at many countries, including Jamaica. He came here, looked at what we had, and shook his head and said, what a crazy set. And he went to other countries and he checked out what was going on. And he picked the best that he could out of all of them, plus his own genius, and put together a program that gave the Singaporean the kind of country that they have today. And he did it all in 25 years. Jamaica has been at it now from 1944, when we had our first election on the universal adult suffrage, to 62. That was 18 years. We had a lead time of 18 years to figure out what we were going to do. Two parties had a lead time of 18 years. And then subsequent to that, they had 60 years. One party had 18 and a half years straight in office. The JLP always get the first chance. In 44, they got the first 2 terms. In 62, they got the first 2 terms. And the JLP, which should have set the tone for Jamaica, should have given the people the confidence they need, failed to do that. And the PNP that followed after them continued the same slackness. And here we are today without the country that we could have had. The UIC is going to change that. I know they don't want to hear it. I know they don't like it. They love to tea for ideas. They can only talk about them. They can't use them because they don't have it. It's not in them. Their entire culture and DNA is about power at all costs. They will destroy anything for power. Their DNA is not the Singapore DNA, which is development at all costs, helping our people at all costs, building our country at all costs. Their mission and vision is how do we get power and hold power as long as possible. And at all times, they're controlled by the PSOJ oligarchy. So the Jamaican people have no chance and no hope. Every vote for the PNP and JLP is a vote for the continued destruction of this country. But let's welcome our guest now tonight. We're ready for talk about, yeah?
Yeah, man, we're ready for talk. So one of our guests tonight is Yola Yeah, Yola Blake. Sorry, Yola Baker.
Let me get it right for you. It is
Yes.
Mrs. Yola Gray.
Yola
Gray Baker. You know, our modern women today, you know, they want to keep their last name, right? So it's Gray, Miss Yola Gray Baker. We have to respect that. So welcome to the show,
Thank you.
Mrs.
Thank you.
Baker. How are you?
Good, thanks.
Wonderful.
Good.
Good to see
I'm
you.
trying to survive.
Yes, I understand. I understand. And before we get into anything, I have to tell people a little secret about you.
I hope I know what the secret is.
Everybody who is watching, you need to know that Mrs. Yola Gray Baker is one of the first, if not the first, vice president of the UIC. She's one of the original founding members from way back when that has helped us to come to where we are today. So I just want to let everybody know that. And I'm so proud to be associated with you. You have not been involved in the UIC for many years now, but you helped to set the pace. So thank you again for that, and welcome back on the program.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that.
My pleasure. So, Mrs. Baker, you see us talking about the demolition of the Jamaican people, and it's long time this ago on. It's not just what we see now at Bernard Lodge. They have been demolishing our people on so many fronts, like when they dealt with Paul Bogle, and the way they dealt with Sam Sharp, and the way they dealt with Marcus Garvey, and the way they dealt with the people at Pinnacle. They have been demolishing our people on so many fronts. And it pained my heart to see what this prime minister, the youngest prime minister, the first post-independence prime minister, who were born after independence, to do this to the Jamaican people, to continue the colonial system of master-slave, where he thinks he's the master or the Bakra master, and treats the Jamaican people as if they are slaves. But you have seen your fair share of this over the years, especially as it comes to the FinSAC experience.
Yes,
so I'll give
sir.
you the floor. Share with us anything you have on your mind, what you have seen happening in the country, plus the history that you want to talk about.
When you mention the Prime Minister and the demolition of the properties now, it reminds me of Mr. Mishek Willis. I'm sure he won't mind me calling his name. He was the handicapped man, started out as a higgler, built himself up to buy a house in Patrick City, started doing his business. The bank gave him a loan. That was one of the accounts that Dr. Davis took and sold off to a foreign entity. Mr. Willis was thrown out on the streets, like a lot of us, because if we had not got somewhere to live on the spur of the moment, we would have been on the street too. That's how they treated us. Now, I personally, as president of the FinSAC Association, wrote a letter to Mr. Andrew Holness, the leader of the Jamaica Labour Party, regarding Mr. Willis's situation, if they could at least assist him. He's handicapped. He uses 2 crutches, and no response from the Prime Minister. That's the Prime Minister Jamaica has.
He never saw any photo opportunity in it at the time. He
I
didn't
guess
want,
he still doesn't.
No, because the photo opportunity would read that this man is a victim of the FinSAC era. And so he can't afford that. So he only takes photo opportunities when it doesn't spotlight things that he doesn't want it to spotlight. Yeah. So that's what we have. But
he didn't have to spotlight it, Mr. Patterson. All he had to do is to act. That's all. Do something. Said, okay.
Oh yes. Yes. No, but he won't help, He won't help if he can't get some political mileage out of it, you see. Right? Because they only give out house, They only give out house when they can go and cut a ribbon beside it and say, see, we're helping somebody here for the photo opportunity, so that people will say, yeah, he might do something, while he's busy planning the demolition of those who could hardly cobble cobble together the money to build a little structure and stuff. But for the benefit of our viewers, I want us to step back a little bit, because many Jamaicans do not understand, do not remember, do not know, do not appreciate what FinSac means. They're just living now and going on with their lives. They've forgotten about all those persons, some of them who have died already, some of them who are suffering ill health even today because of what they have lost and how they have suffered. So tonight I want us to take the opportunity to just rewind and share some history with the people and help them to understand the gravity of how destructive our government has been, how the government, in my opinion, has become the enemy of the people. So I want them to see this clearly in FinSac. Walk us back to the beginning and tell us a little about how this whole thing emerged into becoming the FinSac experience.
Okay. First of all, there were 44,000 businesses that I'm aware of that were FinSac. These were people already in business, moving along. They get money to borrow from the bank to sustain the business they're doing. And then they start getting notices from the bank telling them, first of all, at the interest rate that these persons borrowed money. Say, for example, they borrowed at 15%. Mm-hmm. After a period of time, they would get a notice from the bank that the interest has been increased to 20%, then 25, then 30, till it got to 120%. In my husband's case, it went up to 120%.
120% interest. So let me put this in context. Let me put this in context for everybody here. You are running a little small business, right? You start a little small business. Let's say your business, you open a paint shop and you're now importing and you're selling different kind of paints, for example. And for you to run your business, you secured a physical facility and you borrowed some money from the bank maybe to get the lease and to upgrade the place and whatever, or you bought the property where you're going to locate. You use the money to get some inventory, you have stocked your place. You have now hired people, you have a payroll going every month, every week, and you're paying and so on. And you're building out. Your business getting better and you borrow some more money and you put in a point of sale system, maybe you put in a new paint mixer, your equipment, and you're going nicely. The bank gave you a loan that reasonable, it was, let's say, 15% interest, and you're going along. You have learned to work in the groove. Your cash flow is going. Then the bank come back to you and say later on, "No, listen, I'm going to up the interest rate to 23%. You say, "My God, that's hard." But you push things around and you're trying to make it happen. Then they come back to you and it's 25, 30%. And my God, then it's up to now 45%. Then 50%, and then one day, wham, we want 120%.
That's right. And in those days, the interest was being compounded, because when you took a loan, for example, you have a demand loan.
Yes.
It's not attached to your checking account. So if you have a project going, sometimes you would have the owner for the project making deposits directly into your account where the bank has access.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So they're taking out the interest and they're getting back their principal. And then all of a sudden, you find out that the interest has gone up to 120. The collections that they made from the people you're doing the work for can't sustain it. So they put that amount onto your checking account and they charge interest on that again.
Wow.
So it's being charged on the loan and it's being charged on your checking account. There's no way.
Because of the overdraft.
Because of the overdraft keeps
Right.
going up and up and up. And then when it reached to the point that it is just unsustainable and you're trying to make arrangements with them. And from attending the inquiry, I didn't know before the inquiry started, but when we started going to the inquiry and listening to the different, the banks and and had to say, the bank managers who testified had to say, they were encouraging the Minister of Finance then, let us deal with the borrowers and make arrangements, let us work out things with them. And he didn't, he refused.
Wow.
And then the next thing you know, you'll get a letter saying that, or no letter at all, that your debt is being sold. In our, it wasn't sold, it was given away because it was at, I think, 5 cents in the dollar.
5 cents on the dollar. So if you owe $1, they sell the debt for 5 cents.
And then on top of that, you have you're trying to get a hold of yourself to say, what do I do now? And you reach to a point. Now, this is at a point, that's where some people made decisions that ended their lives. There was one particular man that when he realized he could not sustain himself, his family, or the business, or anything, he left a note saying, I cannot go on one more day with the noose of Finsack around my neck. And he hung himself, both him and his wife.
Wow. This is in Jamaica, people. This is Jamaica we're talking about. This is in Jamaica. What year was that, Miss Baker?
Oh, 1990 something. I don't remember exactly the year, but all this started. It was over a period of time. It was,
yes.
There was, as far as I know, there were at least 15 persons who committed suicide because of Finsack.
Because of Finsack.
Yes.
Now we have our another guest in the waiting room here. We're going to be introducing another lady who is a very, very important contributor to the whole scene. She understands the history very well. She was one of those persons who were impacted by Finsack as well, and was inspired to write a book, Too Black to Succeed. And that book is, to me, more than just a book about Finsack. It's a book about the history of Jamaica condensed into a few pages in a way that I have not seen it written before. It's a book I have to recommend to all of you to purchase because it's going to give you some insights about Jamaica that you would not have gotten in your history class if you attended any at all or was a part of it. Welcome to the show, my good friend, Mrs. Valerie Dixon. Good to see you on. How are you doing today?
I am quite fine, thank you, Joseph, and you, and special good evening to you, Miss Yola.
Thank you very much. Good evening to you.
So nice seeing that you could join us this evening because you have so much information to share with the local Jamaicans, especially Joseph, those Jamaicans who were brainwashed. That's the only word I can think of, who were brainwashed by the then Finance Minister Omar Davis. If you hear some of the things that he told, who I thought were sensible Jamaicans, who I thought were educated Jamaicans, and they bought Omar Davis's line, hook, line, and sinker. And that is why I believe that Yola in particular got very, very little support and empathy from Jamaicans who should have known better. But because they were brainwashed by Omar, PJ Patterson, and that set, they just dismissed the whole Finsack thing as being because we were greedy and did not want to service our loans. And as you saw in that article I wrote, that I put on Facebook and shared with the world, nothing could be further from the truth. And I'm so happy that Yola is here because she knows the inside information even more so than I do, even though my family was directly impacted. And I mean, as the conversation goes on, I will put in my 2 cents worth, but I would like you, in a way, to get out from Yola for all of Jamaica, just what it was that we had to endure because of our history that underpins why people like Omar Davis, PJ Patterson were able to get away with such a travesty of justice, and to finally get the average normal Jamaican to understand that what they see happening out at Bernard Lodge is just a continuation from the 19th century with the Morant Bay Rebellion to Finsack in the 20th century, and now Bernard Lodge in the 21st century. And
Good. I'm glad.
The 17th century.
I'm glad you said that. I'm glad you said that, because what I want people to realize is the connection between Finsack and the demolition of these people in Bernard Lodge, and those who are on the demolition row, if you will, over there in Lloyd's Vale. Now, what I want the Jamaican people to understand is, don't follow the narrative that the politicians give you. Don't trust the narrative. Don't believe that when they tell you that they're after criminals and gangs, that is really what they're after. What they're after is the land that belongs to the people of Jamaica, that they want to give to other people to be able to do their development, to make their money. But they need to find a scapegoat. They need to find something to put at the forefront and to use that to distract you and misguide you while they're seeking their ultimate objective. Just like how they told lies on the people that they were destroying or demolishing on the Finsack, is the same way today they will use lies, half-truths, and innuendos to misguide and mislead and misdirect so that they can cover up with a smoke screen what they're really doing. And by the time you figure it out, it will be an old Joseph Patterson with woolly gray hair and a thick glasses here trying to explain to you. Remember back in 2022, I was trying to explain to you what they were doing. That's what is going to happen. So we better learn now. All of you on there, some of you are 45 years old, some of you are 35 years old, some of you are 20. You don't really know what is going on. So these two ladies who have the experience and the knowledge, let us be keen to learn from them. Either we learn from them or we'll learn from our own mistake of allowing them to trick us again, like how they tricked our parents and our grandparents in the past. So Ms. Yola,
I like how you mentioned that, because I tell you something. When I heard about this current demolition, Finsack came right into view. As I said to my husband, I said, "Isn't this Finsack all over again?"
All over again.
Yes.
It is.
Yes.
And
Yes.
let me also state that it wasn't giving away our property to other people. There are politicians who occupy some of these Finsack properties.
Absolutely.
Politicians.
Just like
Both
right
parties,
now, many
PNP and
politicians,
Yes.
many politicians right now have a whole heap of land. A whole heap of land, while many Jamaicans are still landless and are now being pushed off the little piece of land that they try to occupy to build something. But tell us some more, Ms. Baker. Go back a little bit now and continue the storyline of how people were Finsacked. Tell us some more about that. Pick up where you left.
When you realize that you're unable, because even if you were doing drugs, you could not pay back those loans. My husband in particular, he borrowed $10 million. He's in construction. And when you get projects, you can get a loan. And when you get payment from the owners, you repay the loan. And when the construction is finished, that clears that. He borrowed $10 million. He paid back to that demand loan $52 million. And after that, they still told him he owed $85 million.
A $10 million loan become a $52 million loan.
So that's what he couldn't pay. After $52 million, he couldn't pay anymore. He had nothing else to pay.
Which then become a balance of $80 million still outstanding. $85 million outstanding. What a piece of extortion.
Exactly. And this is only one person. Remember, 44,000 persons.
Now,
businesses.
Where are most of these people, Yola, of the 44,000?
You know, Valerie, I am not sure. I have not been in touch with a lot of them because a lot of them gave up hope. Yeah. There's one particular woman I remember, she lived in Stony Hill, and the morning that they went to her house, they come to your house like early in the morning, like between 6, 7 o'clock. And they come with a truck and bailiff and a bunch of hoodlums as far as I'm concerned. And they come into your house to throw everything out, whether you have somewhere to go or not. Well, that particular morning, that lady called me and I went to her home and she was literally standing outside. It was raining and she was shaking like a leaf and her urine was literally running down her legs. And they stood up and looked at her and laughed and just kept. Let me tell you, it was difficult for me to bear.
Who came to the house?
I'm sorry?
Who came to the house?
The bailiffs.
To do what they were taking, our furniture?
To throw you out.
So they're taking possession of the house?
Of the house, yes.
Because the house was used as collateral for the loan.
Well, yes, it was used as collateral for the loan. Right.
So what they did, they caused you to not be able to pay back the loan because of the sudden high interest rate. And I see some mad people on here, 1 or 2 persons making some very dumb comment about irresponsible borrowing. They don't have a clue what they're talking about.
Right. You know, these are the people who I am happy to be here today because, as I said in an article I wrote, that many Black Jamaicans, and I'm not apologizing for it because I'm not calling anybody's, but many Black Jamaicans want a swift kick to their teeth. Because they are stupid and fast asleep and in a coma. They understand nothing because they have been deliberately kept ignorant so as to keep Black people in their places, which is at the bottom of the social ladder or hierarchy.
Absolutely.
Let me just show you because I don't want to put any emotions into this thing. I just want to deal with facts, numbers. In our case, we were with a particular bank and we're also in construction. And it is a known fact that our interest rate while we were in operation, and incidentally, I want to bring it to the fact of these ignoramuses, that there were many, many companies that in your case, Yola, your company was over 50 years. In another company's case, they were 100 years old. And in our family's company, we were heading for 25 years old. My husband knows that he is not into anything nefarious and underhand. So he, like most honest businessmen, must use the bank to finance their operations. It's only a certain type of people who have money to wash, will have just go under your bed and pull out any amount. And those are the people who they would use to do jobs. And I'm talking now maybe public service jobs. And these people don't have to use the bank. That's the point I'm trying to make.
Yes.
These people don't necessarily have to use the banking system. But we who are honest, hard-working people who have built our businesses from scratch must use the banking system. So you go with your business plan and you tell your bank manager how much money you want to do your business. And he tells you that your bank interest rate is going to be, in our case, 20%. You then sit down and you work out all of your expenses that you must cover, including your bank expense at 20%. May I ask some of these people who are talking crap, how can you have an interest rate that you're servicing at 20% and overnight with no notice given, you go to the bank and that interest rate is now 68%? You give collateral until you are weak, trying to see if you can cover these expenses and the sudden jump in interest rate. Every time you go to the bank, you have to find more collateral. So our parents' house then, since they want to know a business, was used as collateral to try and suck up the sudden jump from 20% to 68%. Me not see about that the title there yet to this day.
Wow.
And overdraft interest rates. Remember now, an overdraft is something that you get permission. You can't walk into a bank and stick up the bank manager and say, hey, look here, I want overdraft interest and I want you to give me at so much percentage. Overdraft interest moved within a few months from I don't even remember, my husband forgot to write down what it was, but it went to 120% within a few months. You tell me which business on planet Earth can absorb this sudden hike in the high interest rate. And I'd like Yola to tell us, it's all there in my book, how Don Crawford was treated with his bank. I mean, everything I spell out in plain English in my book, of course, you know, sir, as far as they're concerned, in my book, dash way, dung a dungle heap, but that is neither here nor there. The fact is that it is written down for the future.
So I want to, for the benefit of our viewers, I want to explain something to you. In the 1990s, the P.J. Patterson administration had something which they called, which is labeled the high interest rate policy regime. The purpose of that is P.J. Patterson promised the Jamaican people that he was going to get rid of the IMF. So he was going to leave the IMF. Now, remember, the IMF gave Jamaica loans at a certain interest rate. But that loan and interest rate comes with stipulations as to what the government can and cannot do. P.J. Patterson and Company wanted a greater degree of latitude to do whatever they want. You know, you borrow money and you don't have to give any accountability for it. They wanted to do that. So what he did was to tell us that he was going to get Jamaica out of the IMF. So he borrowed money from the private market to pay off the IMF low interest rate loan. But of course, you know, you have to take a higher interest rate loan from those you're borrowing from to pay that off. He then goes out both into the international market and to the local banking sector and borrowed galore and spent galore. Now, when the government is offering the market high interest rate yields on their bonds and treasury certificates that they sell, the market now has no interest in lending to the local small businesses because they can get more secured lending, where instead of you lending to an entrepreneur with a certain degree of risk, if you can get that same level of return with lower degree of risk, you move that borrowing to the government and it mops up liquidity in the local market. It draws money out of the local market and push that money to the government coffers. The government then get to play games with your money and run with it, okay, and run up huge deficits because now they're getting all this flush of money. This moved the bank into a direction where the banks become less interested in the small businesses, and that dries up the money. Now, what they do with people like now, Valerie and Yola, is they can now push up the interest rate astronomically to get you to stop borrowing, to pull back that money from you and lend it to the government instead. Now, that's one part of it. The rest of it now are some dark, shadowy things which are happening behind the scene, where they're planning now to take over people's property, take away people's businesses, and move that in the hands of some other people while destroying a lot of our people. Yola, tell us some more about that now.
Well, you know, also, one of the things that caused what was going, it's not just the government, what was going on in the banks themselves was, and I don't know, we don't have any bank accounts here, you know, business account with collateral there.
They never gave us any.
So, but what was happening then is we would go to the bank and get loans. There were some of the persons who went to the banks, take their titles, got the loan they wanted. When they left the bank and left their titles there, their titles were used by persons in the bank taking loans for themselves. So this rightful owner, you have your title in the bank holding for your business, and someone else is using your title unknown to you. So if you
sorry, I have to just bring it in here that this was done by some of the corrupt bank managers.
Yeah.
Yes. So that's fraud, you know. That's fraud. That's fraud we're talking about. Yeah. Yeah.
And they use it now. When you borrowed $1 million, you don't know 3 million was borrowed as well. So you owe 4 million and you don't know.
Right.
Okay.
So you have a debt. So you have a debt of 4 million attached to your title, to your covenant, to your collateral. You may have only borrowed, say, 2 million, and somebody through the banking system fraudulently have borrowed another 2 million on it. Now, when all of the problem blew up, instead of them structuring the situation to fix the problem and cover you and make sure that your business is secured, you know, and bail you out, so to speak, what they did was to add fuel to the fire and then seek to push you out and sell your asset at a fire sale price.
Exactly. And Mr. Patterson, if you look at Jamaica today, with the gang warfare and everything, you know, with 44,000 businesses closing down, you know how many people are out of employment?
You see,
where are people? It's not just the owners of the companies.
Yes.
It affected everybody, families, the people who worked with you, their families. There was one gentleman who had his son going to UTech, and he could not pay the school fees anymore. And the son is home one day and said to him, "So daddy, if me go out on the street with a gun and hold up a man, forget some food, forget money to buy food, what wrong with that?" And he's trying to tell him, "No, son, you can't do anything like that." And the son said, "But look at how you said you did it the right way, and look at where we are."
Yeah.
Now, what is going on today? How do you blame the people?
Yeah.
It is criminality, yes, but what brought them to that position? What brought them?
I would like to step back a little bit, Yola and Joseph, and really try to explain to persons who are not too fluent in economics and commerce and all those things that we should be taught from an early age in school, but we are deliberately not going to be educated because to keep us ignorant is how they stay on top. Let me read from my book here. I'm not going to call any names, but my source says that there was a shortage of foreign exchange because developers in Jamaica were doing a lot of building within the tourism sector. Hotels like dirt being put up. And so foreign exchange is going to be needed for a lot of this development taking place. So a shortage of foreign exchange to keep up the pace of development of the hotel that he was building. This is Don Crawford. led Central National Bank to outbid other financial institutions on a block of foreign exchange being auctioned by the United States Embassy. In other words, the stuff that he's buying cannot be bought in Jamaica, so he must find from wherever foreign exchange to buy the things abroad. Nothing wrong here, because our merchants, we have been so accustomed to foreign goods from we were on the plantation. Everything was imported, even a yard of cloth to make a little dress had to be imported. So we're always seeking foreign exchange. And because they know that we love foreign goods, the merchants and the people who are in the mercantile class don't care about the people who love foreign things. If they want foreign exchange, they will bid and outbid, and the one who says I'll pay the highest for an American dollar, you get it. If you have your husband who's sick and need medicine from America, and you go to the bank to get foreign exchange and you carry a shirt, them say, lady, just go back to your yard because foreign exchange rate gone up. So let me get back to, just to get people to understand what we mean when we say there was a shortage of foreign exchange. We not love local things, so there will forever be shortage of foreign exchange, because American people not going to take Jamaican dollar for them goods. They want it in US dollars. I can't make it any simpler than that. So Don Crawford now outbid other financial banks and institutions on this block of foreign exchange auctioned by the United States Embassy. These funds were one of many instances in which the US Embassy auctioned the foreign exchange received from Washington. But in so doing, Central National Bank bid was more or exceeded the unofficially proclaimed official rate of exchange, which was at the time $22 to $1 US, promoted by the Bank of Jamaica. Guess what Don Crawford went and did? Which is, again, nothing illegal, because the entire mercantile class, and we know who those are, who bring dry goods into the island, they rush and bid against one another, wrestle them to get foreign exchange. And the crime that Don Crawford committed was to bid $25.10, which was higher than the bid of others at the rate of 22 Jamaican dollars. Amir, how much was the difference?
$3.
$3, right. So this was embarrassing to the government because it signaled a meaningful depreciation of the rate of exchange. Although it was well known that the BOJ, Bank of Jamaica, was paying more for foreign currency bought by their street agents. And I'm going to stop right there, sir, because these ignoramuses who don't understand anything and want to talk about hard-working Jamaicans being greedy, and people like Yola, whose husband has been in business for 50 years, suddenly overnight, his company, my company, and all the other companies are described to the Jamaican people as being bad debtors. How suddenly you are run business for 50 years and you don't know how to run business? I am going to stop there and
before you speak, Yola, I want to just point something out to the Jamaican people here. when they did this to those 40,000 businesses, as Yola was trying to say earlier on, you're talking about all the jobs that were lost. You're talking about all the continuity of businesses that were lost. So all of you young people who come up afterwards and look for work and can't find any, that's why you can't find any, because these people were wiped out. These jobs, these companies that, let's say, Yola's husband or Miss Dixon, your business, if it had survived over the last, how many years now since then? 30 years?
Another 25 years have gone. Yes.
Can you imagine if those 40,000 businesses, some would have died and some would have evolved. So what you would have had now are some more mature companies. Maybe back then they had 5 employees, now they would have 50. Maybe they had 50 back then, now they would have 150. Maybe they had 150 back then, they would have 300, 500 employees. Bigger, they would have probably expanded to the other Caribbean islands and create all kinds of possibilities. But because they were cut short, the population that came after your era, those who came later, the young people now who are coming, there was no jobs for them. And that's why many of them now who leave college and university are at call centers, because you don't have the diversity of industries here in Jamaica now to hire those people. Am I onto the right thing here, or am I missing something?
And I would just use just a second there, Yul. I just want to use my company as an example. When we were, you would say, at the top of our game, it was not unusual for us to be able to employ from persons with university degree right down to a murderer awaiting his conviction, and he's working as a laborer pushing barrow. You see the wide range of employment we're offering. When we were, I don't even want to call the word FinSac, if we had 10 out of a cadre of maybe over 200 employees, we were left with a skeleton crew of 10 people. May I ask all these Jamaicans who are there, I don't even know what they're doing, but may I ask them, what happened to the 190 workers who we were forced to let go? If a man can't live good, then how else is he to survive?
Exactly.
Lola, let us take 2 companies, 2 insurance companies. Mutual Life Insurance Company was 100 and more years old.
Yeah.
The national hero, George William Gordon, was a co-founder of Mutual Life Insurance. They had thousands of employees. Let's take another one. Life of Jamaica was employing people in the thousands. Those 2 companies alone were responsible for employing thousands of Jamaicans. When they were destroyed, all those people had to go find alternative means of livelihoods. Multiply that now by 44,000. We were the backbone of the Jamaican economy. And when you put the dots together, if you destroy your bona fide legitimate entrepreneurs, what are you really left with?
Exactly.
The excuse to bring in foreigners. And it's always at the detriment of the Jamaican people from 1684, when those first slave laws were made to keep the black people in their places, until today out at Bernard Lodge.
Absolutely. Yola,
Yes.
you were saying, go ahead.
Yeah, now there was a gentleman that I knew of that made arrangements. Well, I guess all Jamaica should know by now that the companies were given to Jamaica.
One second. Just a second, Yola. Hello, good evening. Welcome to the program. Who am I speaking with? Yes, sir. TJ or DJ. Yeah, man. Go ahead. What you want to ask us tonight?
Well, first, before I ask the question, I just wanted to reinforce one of the points that was made previously.
Yes.
Just to kind of help it to come across better to the audience. So I didn't know before recalling regularly on the program, young youth in their early 20s, but based on how I see a country run and based on what I know and understand about economics, which is a understanding that is increasing day by UIC go the places and also educate. But what I know is that for any country to move on as being a developed country, any country to survive, thrive, and to continue to experience positive growth. In other words, continue to have an upward trajectory. Small businesses need to be taken care of and be allowed to be put in an environment where they are allowed to flourish and to maintain themselves in a sustainable fashion. If a small business of a nation is allowed to decay and rot in favor of larger multinational corporations or even local large companies, in other words, the big men, which are typically a few, the country cannot survive. Economic activity is the basis of the strength of a dollar of a country. To put it plainly for those who need to understand it in simpler terms, is almost holistically dependent on small to medium scale businesses.
Absolutely.
And the crime rate and all the other things that contribute to the Jamaica that we see now that we are not satisfied with, including the infrastructure, specifically roads and all these things, railways, which is basically the logistics. That is how what they call now the supply chain is dependent on these things. If these things are not maintained and if the small businesses, the medium-sized businesses are not allowed to prosper, to move forward, the country will stagnate and then start to go in reverse.
Absolutely.
As much as the people of the planet big money and then put the branding and what it will jump up on the rain, it is the small and medium-sized businesses that are the majority in most cases.
Absolutely.
That keep the country afloat. They are the backbone.
Absolutely.
Now, the question I have to ask about this whole film thing. I was born in the late 90s, so I'm not really sure about what PJ Patterson did. So I would just wanted you guys to just backtrack a little bit and please don't re-explain it again in
sure
terms.
Yes.
And also, when you finish, please state how the UIC would have done things differently.
Absolutely.
So, thank you.
Thank you so much. Brilliant question from DJ. Is a 20-something-year-old young man, very intelligent. So he wants to know, he wants us to step back a little bit and just define exactly what the PJ Patterson administration did wrong, in your opinion, and then for me to tell him what the UIC would have done differently under a similar situation. So who wants to go first? Yola?
No, Valerie, you go. No, Valerie, you go.
Go ahead,
You know
Valerie.
why I want to go first? Because I want Yola to do the inquiry, what really happened there. But I will give the history as to what caused the FinSac debacle, the simple act of what caused the debacle. You remember a while ago I told you that Don Crawford outbid the merchants for the chunk of foreign exchange being auctioned by the U.S. Embassy? You remember that? Well, this is what happened because Don Crawford, a black man, had the audacity to go and outbid those who were the regular people who were the merchants and belonged to the mercantile class. How dare him? So this is what happened. When Omar Davis, this is coming from a source that was in the public's domain, so I don't want anybody to jump on the case and say where she get the information from. It was in the public domain, so it means everybody has access to this information. When Omar Davis, then PNP finance minister in the 1990s, began the process of dismantling the Central National Bank, it was done immediately after the Don Crawford-run entity had bought a significant sum of US dollars at a few dollars more than the price that the official exchange rate indicated. The bank did nothing which other banks were not doing at the time, in a time when an inept PNP government was struggling with managing a market economy which it knew little or nothing about. What the sale of those dollars did was reveal that the very same finance ministry was covertly or secretly dispatching agents with huge stacks of cash in the trunks of their cars to buy US dollars at prices above the official exchange rate. Wanna please tell me, what did Don Crawford do that was worse than what these same government people were doing? I just want somebody to tell me that.
No different, same thing.
All right.
And Don also, he was getting what he wanted, or rather what the government then wanted Don Crawford to do. He refused and said he had friends overseas that would assist him in what he wanted to do. So he refused them. And this was like going home, having a meeting on a Saturday night, midnight. And early in the Sunday morning, he's on his way home. He saw the Gleaner man out there with the Gleaner selling, and stopped to buy a copy of the Gleaner, only to see the headlines that Don Crawford has sold out part of his bank to government in whatever, which never went so.
Exactly. But look at this part now, please, gentle people. With blood rushing to its head, when this action was revealed, an embarrassed PNP government set about withdrawing public funds from the Central National Bank. Now, public funds are like NHP, NIS, and PATH program and that kind of thing. Those are public funds. And
hold on, Miss Dixon. So who is Don Crawford? Because many people don't know who that person is.
Don Crawford is the owner of a local bank called Central National Bank.
Good. And this Don Crawford now outbid or bid above the established exchange,
yes,
which upset the government. And because he did that, they now took retaliatory action.
That's right.
And
with
the retaliation now was to withdraw funds that they had held at that company, at that bank. So yeah, continue now.
So just quickly going on. So Yola, get ready, because I'm going to leave this up to you after. So funds are being withdrawn from Central National Bank, making it publicly known. Now, to me, the heading of this thing is bad man and wickedness cause of Jamaican financial meltdown. After you're drawing out public funds from the bank, Central National, you make the withdrawal publicly known. And in the process, it started or triggered a run on the bank, which was seemingly designed to end the bank's life. That, however, is a sad history for the most progressive bank at the time existing in Jamaica.
In other words,
mind and wickedness, yes.
In other words, Ms. Valerie, what they did was to create the conditions for the bank to fail.
Exactly. Because if you take out so much million, you're creating a hole. And then when people say, but wait, if government had take out money from Don Crawford Bank, then me not forgot for mine. And
Absolutely.
you remember Yola, what happened to all of the local banks? I think maybe only Nova Scotia Bank escaped this judgment. So that was the trigger that was pulled, and that was what triggered so much liquidity, so much paper money then, so much cash to be in the system. And that is now going to cause inflation, because if people know you go into the store and the shoe costs $30 and the man knows say you have $60 in your pocket, what am I going to do? Not tell you say the shoes cost $59?
Right. So let's continue now. I want us to piggyback on this Don Crawford and Central National Bank debacle here. So once they started the run on Central National Bank, how did that now spread throughout the banking system? What were the factors that led to the expansion of this to the so-called meltdown now of the banking system?
A big hole was created in the economy. And what Omar did to fill this hole was to invite cash-rich individuals, old money families and individuals to lend him money. And if you lend me money, you better give me some very good rates to encourage me to buy your treasury bills, your shares, your stocks, your bonds, your paper.
So here comes another caller.
I don't want no local or ordinary rate. I want the high, exorbitant rates.
So here comes another caller.
What is meat for some people is now going to become poison for 44,000 Black entrepreneurs who have to borrow and now have to get this high exorbitant rate that only the rich can smile about.
Hold on a second now. I have Mr. Bruce Davis on the line. Good evening, Mr. Davis. Welcome to the program. What's your question?
Pleasant good evening to you, Mr. Patterson, and
yes,
a wonderful, warm evening or good night to your two hosts and guests. You know, honestly, my heart moved when I hear these two ladies spoke. I've read, I've heard about that thing. I never knew it was so terrible. You know, and I'm saying to myself right now, when I hear and I see people making some comments, and I'm praying for them. Because listen, Mr. Patterson, you know what's our biggest problem, sir? When we listen to this thing, we put on our green color glass and our orange color glass, so everything looks perfectly fine. Many of them never start a business for themselves. I know what it is to start business. I have started business already. I know what it is. But when these people are talking, I have a very good idea of what they're talking about. You understand me?
Yes.
And I'm telling them, you know, people like Mr. Omar Davis, may God be with him, man. Them is wicked. Them is, I want to hear one of the guests said that she wrote to Mr. Andrew Owens. This is what hurt me now. This man moved me most of all about the gentleman. I will never forget this now. And I believe that every Jamaican, every white Jamaican is listening right now will take note. Write to Mr. Andrew Owens and talk to him about the gentleman who has been insulted on the street. But maybe I think she said he had one leg or something like that, walking on a foot, whatever. Right? Can you imagine the trauma that poor man been through if he's still alive today? And a man like Mr. Andrew Owens now, who's the Prime Minister, who's supposed to be looking out for people like these, because these are victims. These are not people that fail themselves along the way. These are victims by the government which one the government. You understand me? And you don't look to help it. As what I said before, you know what happened, man? There may be no fancy ribbon to cut for him for. And all they do is to get political knowledge out of everything they do. Right, yeah, right? And that's why I said I will never vote for none of these two parties. There's that a UIC, I'll never vote, man.
Thank you for your...
I'm using this opportunity to rally Jamaica and let us rise up, because this thing what Andrew Owl is doing with these people and them powers right now, is the next things are coming up. And there are going to be many more things that we cannot take another Kern Spencer. We cannot take another Omar Davis. We definitely cannot take another Ruel Reed. You understand me? So if we don't take our stand now, we're going down. We're going down.
Dog damn, what's up? Well, thank you very much, Mr. Davis.
So make them still don't want to take off the orange color glass and the green color glass and look in Jamaica, because it happening all the way right now under we nose.
Yes, yes, you're so right. Thank you so much. Yeah, man, appreciate it. Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Patterson. And have a good night, panelists. God bless you all.
Good night to you too. Thank you so much.
You know what I would like to mention, Mr. Patterson, here, when he brought up Mr. Willis, in order for him to survive, because when he was thrown out of his house, he literally found a place where he used sheets to make wall, because there was no walls.
Wow.
And the ground was dirt. It's no floor. The ground was literally dirt. After he was thrown out of his house and he went to this place, he had a young daughter. The daughter never left the house. She wouldn't go not even to the front to look out. She didn't go back to school. She would not leave the house. She was in such a depression.
Wow.
Please tell them, Yola, the type of house that Mr. Willis was thrown out of.
He I think it was a 3-bedroom house in Patrick City.
Patrick Gardens.
Patrick Gardens. Mr. Willis started out as a higgler. And then he and his wife bought a vehicle they used to drive from Kingston to the country to sell. And you know, make stuff sell. He makes pillows sell. He got a contract from a school to make curtains, I think, for the school. And that's how he got into borrowing the money, because he did not have the finances to buy the material to get these made. And that's how he went to the bank to get the loan, a mere $140,000. And he didn't use it, basically. He didn't use most of it because he didn't like loans. Wow. He didn't like loans. And he ended up, threw him out. And until this day, now that I'm speaking, Mr. Willis now lives in Cassava Peace by himself. He's 80-odd years old.
Wow.
One room, because he doesn't have space for any of his kids to live with him.
Wow.
Another family destroyed.
80-odd years old. He should not be living alone. He wrote a book. He wrote a little book about his experience. And every day he took the bus and went out to Half a Tree Road in front of NCB and sit down out there and sell the book. That's how he made money that he could eat.
You know, Mr. Patterson, Yola, let us get back now to reality. A Yale University research consultant has done a 17-page case study on FinSAC. And as I sit here, I cannot tell you of one local university where the students, the tertiary students, some are now graduates, even know what FinSAC is all about. And it is from this this case study that, and Yola, I want you to elaborate on this for me. It is from this case study that I am learning. I knew it, but it was not in the public domain, so I could not reveal it in my book, but Yola understands it. That the FinSAC debtors offered Omar Davis 25 cents. Was it in the US dollar, Yola?
I don't remember. I think it was Jamaican, but whatever. Oh, yeah, in US dollars. Yeah, in US dollars.
Offered 25 cents in the US dollar to buy back their loans. Omar Davis rejected and refused the offer. And as I sit here tonight, Omar Davis accepted 5 cents from a man coming out of Texas by the name of Dennis Jocelyn, and sold our portfolio, our assets, our lands, our houses, because remember, they are the ones who liquid down, because Omar Davis gave Jamaica the impression that 44,000 Black Jamaican entrepreneurs licked them head and turned idiot and didn't know how to run businesses, and that's why we failed. That is what Omar Davis told Jamaica after he's there selling out our assets to this usury company, a collection agency. It is there for all to read, but it gets worse. It gets worse, and Yola, I want you to go into it because you know it even more than I do. There is a Jamaican company that Omar Davis and others registered in Texas. It is called the Jamaica Redevelopment Foundation. Every day I see this American man, he has a name, but I'm not going to call his name unless I have to prove to people that I know what I'm talking about. He comes to Jamaica every so often to collect the funds from the sale of our collateral that the banks stole from us, and gave it to this company and accepted 5 cents and rejected a Jamaican group of debtors who offered him 25.
So let me
get a kickback for everything that this man collected. They would be given 15%. Maybe it could even be higher than 15%. And Jamaicans sit down for 25 years and allow that government to hide. You hear what I'm saying, Mr. Patterson?
Yeah.
To hide the FinSAC report for 40 years. I was told it came in a box with a padlock and locked away in a vault. 25 years have gone, so that they will never be brought to book or to justice, because by the time the next 25 years rolls around, them done dead. And most of us who were FinSAC, who is going to talk to the next generation? That's why I wrote the book called Too Black to Succeed, the FinSAC Experience. They say we must write our stories, but I know that none of them will endorse this book because they're all from both sides guilty of this travesty of justice. Yola,
didn't the opposition, within the current government, when they were in opposition, didn't they say that they were going to publish this when they become elected?
Yeah, well, first of all, they agreed that they would start the inquiry to begin with. It was a fight with them,
Yes.
but eventually they agreed.
So they said, elect us.
Yeah.
So they say, elect us, and we'll start the inquiry.
No, it really wasn't on that, basically. He didn't say that, but it's Mr. Audley Shaw, who was the finance minister then, said that he would get the inquiry started. Well, the inquiry did start. Went 2.5 years, I think it was, and completed. And the last words that I heard from Mr. Shaw was that the report was completed and was being sent to the Governor General and would be sent to Parliament, and to see when it was going to be made public. And that was how many years ago? Valerie, how many years has that been?
Oh my, that was about from 2003. The report. 2011. But guess what? Mr. Shaw cannot publish that report because both sides have our assets that they got at fire sale prices.
Right.
Yeah,
and some of Yola, you have to go into who get bailout too. Because
what I'm about to say is that the agreement that was made between the government then and the Jamaica Redevelopment Foundation, where 15% of every property that was sold by Jamaica Redevelopment after they got all the properties, the Jamaican government should get that 15%. If you remember, was it a year or a couple of years ago that the current finance minister there was an article in the newspaper saying that he discovered that the 15% wasn't being paid and that there was more information to come, but then we never heard the more information never came. So they literally gave it for 5 cents in the dollar and got nothing out of it.
So let me hold on, ladies. I want to remember, you ladies know this very well, but I want our audience to understand. So back up a little. So the debt, whose phone is that? The debt that they said all of you small businesses and medium-sized businesses owed, the debt that was then going to be bought by somebody. Those of you whose debt it was said, listen, you'll buy back that debt at 25 cents on the dollar. So the debt is $1 and you'll give 25 cents for it. The then finance minister rejected your offer and he accepted the offer of some other foreign entity.
I can say it's in the public domain thanks to this Yale University research consultant. It was Beale Bank. Was that the name?
Yes.
Beale Bank.
It was named Beale Bank, but it wasn't a bank. It was a collection agency.
Got it. So the government, remember, the government know things that is not fully public to everybody else. So for whatever reason, they decided that it was in their best interest to sell your debt for 5 cents on the dollar to Beale Bank, which is a collection agency, as opposed to selling it
out of Texas. Don't let us keep
out
it
of Texas.
real that
Out
this
of
is
Texas.
not Jamaica we're talking about.
Exactly.
Our assets and our collateral were sold to Beale Bank in Texas, and the Jamaica Redevelopment Foundation is registered in Texas as well. Omar manipulated the laws to allow him to do such a
deal. Yes. So what is going on here for my listeners and viewers? What is going on here? Our politicians, as they normally do, create a scheme whereby it was advantageous to them to sell the assets of those Jamaican small businesses that they have now caused to be in trouble with high interest rate loans, where they lose their collateral, which is the collateral to back those loans. And now they sell all of this, package all of this, all of the assets and stuff together, and they sell it not to the Jamaican small business owners. They say, we're willing to pay 25 cents since you're auctioning it off. we're willing to pay 25 cents. They say, no. We will take 5 cents from these two Texas entities. Do I have that correct? I want to make sure. Is that
yes,
correct?
but let me stick a pin right here. Also, some of the owners of those properties, the business people, offered to buy back their properties for more.
Right. For more,
for more money than they were selling it to the overseas entities for.
And for whatever reason, the government was comfortable to make sure that the Jamaican people, these two black to succeed Jamaican business owners, made sure that they couldn't get back their property, even if they're willing to pay 5 times the amount that is being offered by a foreign entity with some kind of kickback deals that we don't know about with our local politicians. And so that is how they completely destroyed these small business owners. Do I get that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
That's correct.
Continue the story now, Miss Yola.
Well, where do I begin? The fact is that there were just so many. Don't ask me why the report hasn't come out. One of the things that I learned at the inquiry was when Dr. Davis was forming FinSAC, he was advised by an accounting firm, a very well-known accounting firm, of which I won't call the name, that it was illegal for the government to form a private entity to take these properties and dispose of them in whatever manner. He went ahead and did it anyhow.
Wow. Now, if the report comes out, Miss Baker, Miss Dixon, if the report comes out and all of this was to be properly understood and digested by the Jamaican people, it is very likely that there's no way that these two political parties would have any credibility in the eyes of sensible, sane Jamaican people.
Well, I would say not just not have any credibility, but there might be legal repercussions.
Correct. They could end up behind bars. And worse than that now, what they have done is to pass laws or to use laws to say this information must not be made fully public for 40 years.
It must not be made public at all. It must not enter into the public domain where people can see it and read it. And I would like Yola to address some of the questions that this report should answer. There is a bank that was doing worse than Central National Bank, and yet that bank was bailed out to the tune of millions of dollars and then sold to somebody for a song and a dance.
You mean the bank that was too what?
That was too big to fail.
Which bank was that? Which bank was that?
Me not call the name, Yola, you can call it.
Okay, so it's one of the most successful banks today in Jamaica, isn't it? It's one of the richest banks in Jamaica today.
Well, okay, that's a better adjective.
Yeah, richest, and it's one of the banks that is most politically aligned today, and that is most helpful in the campaigns of some political parties today. Now, the end result of all of this, though, what we have seen is really that both of these political entities are covering for each other. Isn't that so?
But naturally, if I get through and I make my friend cross the aisle get through too, we're both complicit. So they looked after each other. I mean, I lost my house, and people would say, boy, Valerie, on a really fool. How could I got carried on a title go give back? They fail to realize that when you are in certain industries, if you breach a contract, you are blacklisted and may never be able to get work again. But thank God there is a God after all, that this entity that we were working for did breach the contract. But Where are all the collaterals? And I would like to find out tonight. I'm only sorry that we don't have legal somebody here to find out if what this government did, if it is internationally acceptable under law for a foreign person to come into Jamaica and sell Jamaican assets and then expatriate the money back to Texas and give the people
Jamaica doesn't get any benefit. Jamaica doesn't get any benefit out of it. But not just
really well said, but I'm glad you say it, Yola. That they don't get them 15%. And we are left without our collateral. Them can't find title. Them don't know what happened to this. And land is being sold at time to see Jamaica Redevelopment Foundation advertising properties on Facebook. And you want to see the amount of Jamaicans then who jump up to go by with blood, sweat, and tears and with crosses because enough crosses the boat. As to
you want to know something? Where Jamaica Redevelopment was registered in the state of Texas.
I just said it earlier.
And the state of Texas was where the Usury Act of the United States, where it originated.
But isn't it still illegal in? So isn't it still illegal in Texas?
No, and not just in Texas, but the entire United States. The Usury Act. No collector. When you're just a collector, he's not an illegal entity.
But he's not a bank then. Yet they describe themselves as deal bank.
A collection agency is not allowed in the United States to charge interest or penalty on any debt that they get in their hands to collect. They can collect the debt as it is, but no penalty or interest charges can be added to that amount, that debt. It's against the law.
One thing is clear, ladies, is that we don't have a government that is working on behalf of the Jamaican people.
Of the people.
Never.
Yeah,
it's
that is very clear.
In their pockets with the money, and they don't give a damn about the Jamaican people.
This started from 1684 when the law was passed that raised the status of Jamaica. Going at that. The 17th century we had laws. The 18th centuries we had laws that marginalized Black people and outlawed property ownership, recreation and entertainment, and movement. You see what is happening out at Bernard Lodge? And those laws were in place from the 17th century. 1773, Acts of Assembly further marginalized and outlawed property ownership because they said we are chattel or their property, and property cannot own property. Then there are the pre-emancipation laws made between 1816 to 1828. And it's a whole slew of laws that are still oppressing us today. And the names that are being called out at Bernard Lodge right now as we speak are some of the progeny of these same planters, sugarcane planters, who made the laws from as far back as 1773 and even as further back as 1684. Can somebody in the audience please tell me why white and brown people who make the laws would make laws that are in the interest of Black people? Can somebody please answer?
So basically, Jamaica is a country where it is by design that for the most part, those who are Black should not really own property because they are property themselves.
That's right.
And the way they designed the system is for as much as possible to keep us not owning property, but to be the de facto property of others. They won't say it outright, but we're to be the de facto property of others. And that is why for most of the successful businesses you see in Jamaica, you normally see a certain color set that is occupying those. And the bigger it is, the color seems to get even lighter and lighter. But then you have those now who play the role as background master. They're the middlemen.
The gatekeepers.
The gatekeepers.
They are the dangerous ones.
Yes.
The same black people who maintain the status quo for the lawmakers, the white and brown lawmakers. Those are our problems.
Yes. So right now we have... Go ahead,
Mr. Pat.
No, go ahead.
No, I was going to say that in addition, to show that these politicians are not, they don't want the Jamaicans to be doing good or to succeed. When Omar Davis, he also changed the Money Lending Act, the Jamaica, before FinSac, the Money Lending Act, it's only the banks that were allowed to charge interest and penalty on loans.
Absolutely.
He changed the Money Lending Act to allow Jamaica Redevelopment Foundation, this overseas entity, a collection agency, to charge penalty and interest on the debt.
So the laws, as I always tell Jamaicans, the laws in Jamaica, the laws, the rules and regulations, they're not designed to protect the Jamaican people.
No, sir.
They're designed to protect big business, to protect the interest of those who are funding their parties, not to protect the people of Jamaica. And it has worked. It has worked.
Right.
Now, we're coming to the end now of the program because we've gone beyond the cutoff mark. But what is your final statement? What do you want to summarize or share with us as your final statement? Ladies, you are a special piece of Jamaican history, you see, that we have to find a way to make sure that we get this through to the minds, especially of our young voters coming up now who are just joining the line. They're about to make the same mistake that your parents made, even you may have made, and your children may have made. They're coming up now because when you don't have knowledge, when you're not aware, you follow the emotions, you follow the hype, you follow the nicey, and you don't realize that you might even be voting against your own self-interest. What are your final words? If this was the last time you're going to be able to speak to the Jamaican people in any shape or form, what would you like to leave us with? I'll start with you, Miss Valerie.
I would really like to find out if treason was committed by the then PNP government. And if treason was committed, what recourse do we, the FinSac debtors, really have that would give us the sense that justice has been served? Because, and I want to leave all Jamaicans with this saying, whatever we allow will continue. And we have been allowing ourselves to live in a penal colony for 500 years. And today, October 2022, we are still being penalized, as in the example of Morant Bay, FinSac, Cockpit Country, and now Bernard Lodge Sugar Estate. How long? How much longer are we going to allow this? Because whatever we allow will continue for the next 500 years.
And one of the things that they do is people like us who speak out, we're sabotaged. We're not allowed to do business here.
Exactly.
You know, my last comment would be, whether now or probably after I've left this earth, I hope to God, I pray to God that the FinSac report will be published and made public so people will know. I know there's a lot of young people, teenagers, 20-year-old, 30-year-old, has no clue what FinSac is. And a lot of them don't believe that it affected them. Even I met a young fellow in his 30s when we were demonstrating back then to say he had a little company, but it never really affected him. It affected every Jamaican.
Everybody,
every Jamaican.
Everybody.
And the people who are supposed to teach our young graduates have totally ignored FinSAC. Why? Because the Yale University student and research consultant made me realize that most of them were members of the FinSAC board that were made up of lawyers, doctors, academics, high civil servants, and the bourgeois class. And that's why they are so compromised and don't want the FinSAC report to be revealed.
You know the worst part about it, ladies?
Yeah, the media houses will not carry anything FinSAC. If you notice.
There you go.
Okay.
So we have
that you have formed this little entity here. So that
we have no real investigative journalism here in Jamaica.
No, sir.
So even
not
if
as long as you're getting sponsorship.
Yes, and here's the worst thing about it. This is what I fear. By the time and if they ever publish the FinSAC report, very few Jamaicans would even be interested in reading it. And if they were to try to read it, they might not even understand it unless we have some serious journalists who are going to contextualize it for them and bring out the main point. So
that's why I wrote my book.
Yes, exactly. So get a copy of the book, Too Black to Succeed.
The FinSAC experience. Please tell them for me, Mr. Patterson.
Where can you find it? Where can they find it? On Amazon, right?
On Amazon, yes.
On Amazon, Too Black to Succeed, the FinSAC experience. And my friends who are watching, this will not end here. I'm going to have these two young ladies back on the program, and we're going to have a chat on some other areas of this because it's a big topic and there are many areas to explore. So thanks again, Mrs. Valerie Dixon and Mrs. Yola Gray Baker. It was a pleasure speaking with you, and I look forward to seeing you again on the program soon.
You are very welcome.
Thank you very much, and good night.
Good night
to your listeners and your viewers. Thank you very much for joining.
Thank you. Good night to you. All right, my friends. Thank you so much for joining us on this program tonight. I hope you would have recognized that what has happened back then in the 1990s in terms of FinSAC is happening again right now with a different set of Jamaicans, a different configuration, but it's still the same thing. It's the government working against the people of Jamaica to further the interest of a few. So they're sacrificing a great many Jamaicans for the interest of a few. That's why it's easy for them to demolish the homes of struggling Jamaicans out there in Bernard Lodge and are threatening other Jamaicans across the country, including those at Lloyd's Vale. It is very important that we, the Jamaican people, stand up and say no to this. So on Monday the 17th, Heroes Day, the UIC will be on a bus tour to a number of these so-called squatter communities. We will be in Bernard Lodge, we will be in Lloyd's Vale, and we will be at Heroes Circle as well, as we pay homage to our five national heroes, those who have given blood, sweat, and tears for our rights as Jamaicans. The UIC is going to stand up for the rights of every citizen to property in this country. You were bequeathed property by our parents, our grandparents, our great-grandparents, our ancestors. They own the land. This land does not belong to the government. It does not belong to the Crown Corporation. It does not belong to anybody except the Jamaican people, and we're going to take it back. It won't be easy. Nothing that is good is ever easy, but we are going to have to take the steps to get it back. And once we get it back, we must not relinquish it. As long as we continue to allow these two political parties and the PSOJ oligarchy who controls them, together with the colonial masters, we will never enjoy the safe, clean, and orderly Jamaica that we all deserve. A Jamaica where all of us can live, earn, and retire with dignity in our own country. Let's work together and remember, one Jamaica, stronger together. That's the purpose of the UIC. See you tomorrow night when we look again at another aspect of how they're demolishing the small man in this country. Take care until then.